All right, welcome back. Well, yes, we do have Honorable Ado Dogowa, Majority Leader of the House of Representatives. Well, we also do have Mr. John Ikebukuro Martins, who is the first Vice President of the NBA. But Honorable Dogowa is got a schedule today. So, pardon me, Honorable Mr. Martins. We'll start with Honorable Dogowa so that we can get his perspective before he gets off to the Assembly. So, good morning, and thank you for joining us again today. Now, we've seen the report by the...
Thank you.
All right, the Senate, the President of the Senate was given a perspective in terms of how to proceed with this. But the National Assembly also coming up with theirs, where we understand within 30 days there will be new legislation to see how they could check the activities of SAS. So tell us, what is the thinking of the National Assembly in this regard? The House of Reps, I beg your pardon, with this particular incident.
Thank you so much for having me on this very important platform this morning. As usual, like you all know, the National Assembly, whether the House of Representatives or the Senate, are constitutionally the representatives of the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And with that, that means we have to be concerned about the business of governance, business of security, welfare of the people of the country. Obviously, I want to believe everybody knows that the business of government, most fundamentally, is the business of security of lives and property of the people. And on that note, the House of Representatives in particular, and by extension even the Senate, are particularly concerned about incessant and flagrant abuse of powers, sometimes violations of fundamental human rights by this particular unit of the Nigerian Police Force called the Special Anti-Robbery Squad. SAS. On that note, therefore, the House, under the leadership of the Right Honorable Femi Bajabiamila, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, of course, riding on our fundamental agenda, legislative agenda, we feel there is cause for concern, and we must have to really call a stop to this, to what is actually happening in this particular unit, and even in other components of the Nigerian Police Force. An organization that you call a security organization must be quite conscious of the existing extant laws, rules, and regulations governing their operations. And what we see happening is a situation whereby the SAS, as a unit of the police force, is violating a lot of human rights entitlements of Nigerian citizens, subjecting themselves even beyond the context of their mandate. We look at them as if they are even derailing, departing, a very sharp departure from their core mandate as a security agency to fight against armed robbery, banditry, kidnappings, and other things, wading into other things. The intention, so to say, by the House of Representatives and the Senate as well, is for us to make sure that the applicability of the rule of law as a principle, has a universal applicability, and that our rules that are meant to be respected cannot be breached by anyone, not even the police organization or any other person. And it is in this regard that we feel we must have to come up with some new reforms, new legislative framework that will really subject some of these officers of the police, not even some of the officers of the police as a whole, including creating legal framework whereby individual policemen will be held accountable for their actions or inactions, conduct or misconduct, as the case might be. Because if you go by the existing legislation we have in the Constitution, and of course in the recently reformed, in the recently accented Police Reform Act, that is like there is a provision which has more or less provided the police force and individuals or individual members serving under the police force, it has provided them something like an unfettered protection, unjustifiable protection, taking undue advantage of that section 215 subsection 5, where it has clearly stated that no one can make any inquiry at the court of law as regards the function and responsibilities of the policeman. If you look at this provision of the Constitution, actually, with respect and without any prejudice to the drafters of our constitution, I think is to say the least that it was an oversight, and you cannot allow an oversight to continue to derive the process of our security operations in the country. The Speaker has made it very clear, and the House has also resolved that we will very soon commence a legislative process where steps must be taken to clearly define what a police officer can do in the course of investigations. And where he has run foul, there must be a clearly spelled out penalty for him to bear his cross. But in a situation whereby individuals of the policemen are being protected by way of omission or commission by the laws of the land, then certainly I think it's going to be so sad for our kind of development. We are operating a democratic system of government, and we must be seen to be respecting democratic tenets in virtually whatever we are doing. In the motion we have moved yesterday, it has been resolved. It has been resolved completely. It has been approved and resolved that we must have to charge the Inspector General of Police to within 3 weeks come up, wade into this kind of crisis, this kind of issues. He must have to take ambitious steps to stop these unfortunate happenings among the men of the SARS. We have also charged him to also report to the House within 3 weeks records of actions taken, whether judicial or administrative actions, in terms of penalizing of discipline, in terms of discipline those who are found one way or the other committing or abusing their powers as police officers. And subsequently, a joint House Committee of Police Affairs, Human Rights, and Legislative Compliance have been charged to jointly look at the matter and ensure that these things are stopped henceforth.
Now, some of the immediate thoughts when the information was that the House of Reps will come up with a new legislation. So one wonders, we just had the Police Act. Must this committee come up with a new legislation to check this? Because many thought this Police Act went through the National Assembly. So how come they didn't, if these provisions that they want to come up with were not in here, why was there that oversight? And some of the CPs we've spoken to actually thought it's not that there have to be new laws. There has to be implementation of some of these laws to address these challenges.
Yes, I think you can all agree with me. Laws, or a law in a land like Nigeria or in anywhere else, a law is like a living thing. So it's not surprising when a living thing it's not surprising when someone went to his doctor yesterday for an ailment and still goes back to the doctor tomorrow for another ailment. So we look at laws as if they are living, and we'll look at them with that kind of dynamic approach, and we'll continue to address some of these ailments associated or that are inherent in our existing laws. Yes, we have recently passed the Police Reform Act, but we are all human. For one reason or the other, it has escaped maybe our legislative attention at the moment, at that moment. But now that it has come to our attention, that there are a lot of other things still to be cured, part of the in the context and the content of the Police Reform Act. And of course, it is our duty to continue to do these kind of things time in, time out. It doesn't mean that because we have had the Reform Act recently passed, we cannot look at it again. That is why every session, every term of a legislature, like the National Assembly, is given an opportunity to even look at the Constitution. Remember, the Police Reform Act is an act on a separate hand, while we have the supreme document governing the operations of our Nigerian democracy, which is called the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And of course, while we were reviewing the Police Act, we also have an opportunity through the Constitution Review Committee, which has been kick-started already. The committee has been inaugurated by the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and is now the duties and responsibilities of this special committee to look at those content of the constitutions where there are ailments, where there are deficiencies that have provided for the police force what we all agreed to be an unjustifiable protection in the course of the discharge of their duties. A situation whereby an individual, no matter where he works or where he operates as an official of government, cannot bear liabilities of criminal or civil liabilities, then there is an issue. It is like that person is being above the law, and we cannot allow that situation to continue. The legislation we intend to embark upon will engage specialized groups, the NBA, specialized groups to do with civil society organization, and will also open doors for wider consultations with high-level stakeholders of the Nigerian polity. Politicians, traditional rulers, even the policemen will be asked to come and join hands with us so that we can have a robust engagement, and at the end we come up with a piece of legislation that will really cure some of these deficiencies, some of these weaknesses, some of these unjustifiable advantage some of our people are taking to molest, sometimes to torture. Look at, for instance, we have even the anti-torture bill, an anti-torture act of 2017. It is being flagrantly undermined. It is not being respected. A situation whereby a policeman in the course of investigation will have to embark on torture, molestation, sometimes intimidation, or that leads to, sometimes it leads to even extrajudicial killings. This is quite unacceptable. And as a legislature, as far as the House is concerned, being the House of the Nigerian people, we cannot sit down and tolerate these things happening at the expense of the liberty of our people. That is just the intention, and we will go ahead to do that in the interest of the general public, general public in the society.
Honorable, I don't know how far-reaching that assurance or reassurance will be for the people, because, I mean, you are not unaware that within the past 4 years, this same unit has been banned 4 times, twice this year already. But despite all of that, they have a standard operational procedure, they have code of conduct, they have rules and regulations, they have a chain of command, and all these things have happened until then. And every time there is a ban, such pronouncements as you have, well, similar pronouncements have been made, reforms have been talked about, and many of them have been executed, and yet we have what we have. You also talked about the flagrant abuse of the Anti-Torture Act without anyone, being reprimanded significantly enough to ward off a recurrence. So what's the assurance we have that this new arrangement, this new law that the House of Representatives is proposing will make any difference?
I think, like you rightly said, some of the steps and actions taken were actions taken from other quarters of authority. It could be maybe from the police force themselves. It could be a presidential statement. It could be any other thing from any other quarter of authority. I want to give Nigerians our commitment, our institutional commitment that this time around is a parliamentary intervention. We are coming up with a robust law, a law that will be quite ambitious in terms of commitment to address this problem. And we want to make sure that at the end, what we now come up with by way of legislation must have to be enshrined in the supreme document of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which will certainly give us that impetus, that absolute protection, that absolute impossibility, so that at the end of the day, we don't have a recurrence of what had happened in the past. A situation whereby we now sit down and see killings happening left, right, and center. My brother, this time is going to be a giant stride.
Well, Honorable, just one moment.
It is already encapsulated in our agenda.
Yeah, we hear you, but...
And it will certainly be a different...
Yes, just one moment. Just one moment. Earlier, you talked about the human intervention, the human angle to all of this. We are all human beings.
Yes.
And these laws need to be enforced one way or another. One of the things that the House of Representatives talked about is that the police can no longer police itself. So what's the assurance we have that the human beings that are going to champion this new law that is being proposed will do the needful and not compromise as usual?
I think with due respect to our intentions to involve specialized people, the Nigerian Bar Association, the civil society organizations that will join hands with us to come up with this piece of legislation, I think I don't want to even preempt what the content of the laws will be. But I'm giving Nigerians and your humble self that the Nigeria's House of Representatives, being so much concerned about this unfortunate development, this time around will give this legislation a complete lease of life. We'll give it a complete new impetus to make it work, quite different from what was happening in the past. And I want to also assure you that the context of the law will go to the extent that even if it means giving a clear-cut statement, scrapping some of those agencies flagrantly violating human rights, creating also punitive measures stated clearly in the constitutional provisions of our country, where penalties can now be meted on whoever goes wrong in the discharge of his own lawful duties, then certainly we will do that, so that at the end we will now be seen to be making laws that are functional, making laws that are productive, making laws that are enforceable.
Now, speaking of making these laws, just speaking of making those laws, I mean, you say the House of Reps specifically has 4 weeks to come up with a legislation to curb the excesses and the impunity displayed by some men of SARS. So you have 4 weeks. And then you also mentioned Section 215, Sub 5 of the Constitution, and you say that that is a part that you like to tweak so that, you know, the policemen can be accountable for their actions and superiors. You know that this will involve an amendment of the Constitution, and I'm wondering, can you achieve that in 4 weeks also? Because amending the Constitution, in fact, just to change the name of the Nigeria Police Force to Nigeria Police, that couldn't happen because it is recognized as the Nigeria Police Force in the Constitution. So the question is, can you achieve a constitutional amendment in 4 weeks?
No, get us right. We the Speaker never said in 4 weeks that we will conclude this legislation. But the Speaker gave a commitment that in 30 days coming, in the next 4 weeks, we will commence engagement of stakeholders to come up with this legislation. Even the committee that was now mandated to go ahead and investigate some of these things was given 6 weeks to report back to the House. And naturally, you wouldn't expect us to finish a legislation to this magnitude, a legislation of this high-level sensitivity within 4 weeks. So get us right, Nigerians should also get the Speaker right and the House right, that we only said we will initiate this legislative engagements with specialized group of people, the Nigerian Bar Association, the civil society organization. Within 30 days, we will commence this one in 4 weeks' time. But obviously, we cannot finish this thing in 4 weeks. We need a lot of time to do that. After all, even the Constitutional Review Committee, which has also that constitutional mandate and responsibility to even liaise with the 36 state houses of assembly, obviously is not a job for 4 weeks.
Clearly.
But we'll give it all the commitments, all the commitment it deserves. We'll give it all the attention
so
it
clearly
deserves.
These reforms
that kind of
right. So clearly these reforms that you talk about,
legislation will certainly give that attention.
Right. So these reforms might not come into play until the constitutional amendment comes to fruition. But also, you said that the IGP should appear before the House of Reps in 3 weeks, and you want to see some concrete measures taken. But don't forget that the IGP announced measures being taken. Aside the banning, he talked about monitoring, arrest, and prosecution of policemen that have, flagrantly abused human rights provisions and what have you. Are you saying those announcements by the IGP, they're not enough?
No, sorry, get me right once again. Get the House right once again. We never said the IGP should appear before the House. We are aware of some of those pronouncements he has made. We are also aware of some of the steps he's taken internally to check these excesses. But what we said is that the IGP should make available, whether in writing, communication, soft or hard copy, to communicate to the committee, this committee we have set, actions he has taken, steps he has taken to really stop these unfortunate happenings in the police force. We have never decided to invite him to come and talk to us either in the chamber of the House or to the committee. But we have directed him to make available a comprehensive report as to what he has done so far to check some of these excesses. If there are records of judicial actions taken, the House would like to have that.
Pardon us for jumping in, because we know you need to run, so that's why we're trying to put in as much as we can before you go.
No problem. I still have time. There is no rush.
Oh, fantastic then. All right, that's good to know. Ahead. All right, so now, much as it's good to ensure that these things are addressed, but we seem to gloss over or not pay enough attention to one thing: the welfare of these policemen. If you look at the barracks, where they stay, how much do they earn, it's appalling. For instance, retired DIGs were told earn 100,000 naira. How could we give them guns and not look at their welfare?
I think you may be getting this thing wrongly as well. My brother, let me tell you, the kind of concern we have for the Nigerian police and virtually every security organization in the country is one that you can never imagine. I do not want to delve into discussions of these kind of things on a television like that, but I want to tell you without any fear of contradiction that the kind of funding we give to the Nigeria police, the kind of funding we give to the extended security agencies in Nigeria for them to secure our people, which of course is a right, is something that you can never imagine. We have never taken that lightly. How they go about implementing or managing the resources accorded them, then that is their own business, and I think it's a question that they need to come and answer. But I want to tell you, the House of Representatives and by extension the National Assembly had always taken above board any considerations of provision of funds. We resource them all the time. We give them what they require. In fact, we have given standing and marching orders to relevant committees of security agencies that when their budget are presented, whether in the normal conventional appropriation act or in any amendment submitted or supplementary budget provided by the presented by the executive arm of government, no relevant committee of the institution of the legislature goes near cutting or undermining what they require for security, because we have the belief and the commitment that there is no amount of resources that can be too much for security. We have always done that. Whether they are paid this amount or that amount, I think it's for the police to come and really confirm that. But I want to believe, I want to contend with you that the payments in terms of their welfare, provisions in terms of their housing, retirement benefits, provisions of resources for them to acquire facilities and weapons to defend the country and also protect lives and property of the people, I think is quite commendable on the part of the legislature, and we'll continue to keep that.
We'll come back to this in just a moment. So good to know that you still have some time, so please join us again in a moment. Welcome back to Sunrise Day. Well, let's get to Mr. Ikebukuro Martins. He's the first vice president of the NBA. Well, thank you for hanging on. Well, now, yes, indeed, the House says they will get across to CSOs, the NBA, where you are, and that they will put heads together. What are your immediate thoughts about how to address this problem beyond the pronouncements that we've seen, which clearly have not addressed the issues?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chamberlain. I also want first of all, I want to commend the National Assembly for extending a hand of fellowship to the NBA and other civil society organizations. Because I think the step they are taking, from the very first step they have taken now, they got it right seriously. Because lawyers, we are the persons who all the time we interact with the society and other persons whose rights have been infringed upon. And we have a lot to say, and we have a lot of knowledge, residual knowledge about this whole matter. Also, the issue of, in fact, what the National Assembly is trying to do now is they're trying to find a scheme for policing the police themselves. Because police seems to have the overriding power to do all they can, and nobody sort of supervises them. They only supervise themselves, and most of them not. They don't do anything with respect to complaints coming from the public against men of the Nigerian police. What they usually do is cosmetic. Maybe you have about 50 complaints. They treat about only 3, and they think that is enough. But I think they have become a burden in their atrocities, and the Nigerian people are not crying out, and it's high time that something must be done. So we want to commend the National Assembly for taking up this matter. Because in Nigeria, I used to say that Nigeria, there's so much innocent blood crying for justice in Nigeria. So many persons just being killed and no repercussion, no deterrence, no punishment for any person. So we are very, very glad that once and for all they are taking steps by way of legislation. But the question you asked was, what are my immediate thoughts? Yeah, well, I would say personally that I've always had this belief that we should have a special unit that can intervene when issues of police inhumanity to man is happening or has been reported. For example, there is this in the federal road safety, they have special marshal. However, the special marshal complements the police, but we need to have special marshal that their duty is not to complement the police, but to watch over the police. Such marshals should be drawn from very men of integrity in the society. So that, for example, I'm living in an environment and I hear of such things that are brought to my knowledge. I should have there should be legislation that gives such persons who have been specially appointed by law to go and intervene and have the power to call the DPO or the persons who are involved to order instantly and report to another body, particularly the National Human Rights Committee. We have a National Human Rights Committee. People don't even know their duties, but their duties by law is to monitor and investigate all human rights violation in Nigeria and report to the federal government or state government as the case may be, and also for those who are to be prosecuted, report to the attorney generals for prosecution. Now, so that body, the National Human Rights Commission can be used as a body that can actually at every given time intervene and supervise the police. Apart from these special marshals, like I'm saying, I'm using the word special marshal, but what I'm trying to say that the legislation the National Assembly is considering now, there should be provision where some men of integrity in society, I should expect that chairman of branches of Nigerian Bar Association, chairman of the Nigerian Medical Association in their locality, chairman of maybe the surveyors, these are men who ordinarily already men of integrity in society. If they are appointed maybe for a position of 3 years to supervise the police in their actions with respect to human rights violation, then I think we'll be making a headway. Nigeria is a very peculiar country, so we need to think out of the box to nip in the bud some of the things that happen in Nigeria. You see, when you see these SARS officials, when you see them misbehaving, so now you really wonder whether they have milk of human kindness in them. The atrocities are just outrageous. It's befriending to us how human beings can just go to the extent to which they go. They brutalize, they shoot, they kill without thinking. And the next question again is this: how do they recruit these men of the SARS? Because I think the problem we are having is that they just recruit policemen, bring them constitute them into a special unit that ought to have been a specialized unit. We don't have any college where they are trained. They don't have any special training, but you just put them, and the next thing you arm them, and they're in the streets, and they just become a law unto themselves. I think let me commend the National Assembly for bringing up the
you have raised some
ready to cooperate with them.
Yesterday, right. So some of the
in the news
we're going to take this back to Honorable Dogowa. Some of the issues that you raised are part of what needs to be addressed. For instance, Honorable Dogowa, they're already bombarding us with the salary bit. Some of them say, look, that they don't quite agree with that position. They wonder if the House is monitoring and ensuring that that accountability structure is being adhered to. They, in this CSP with over a decade experience, earns about 200,000 naira. And in fact, some of them even say, look, the question of training that he spoke about, but the recruitment question, a CP joined us the other time and he said, look, politicians have a huge chunk of the blame. That number one is that the quality of the commissioners of police in different places are far below par. It's based on who you know. They post people who are less qualified to man those positions, and as such, they are overwhelmed with some of those activities. We don't put the right people in those places. What are we going to do about that clause, for instance?
Are you with me?
Honorable Dogowa, yes, that's for you.
Yes, I think, like I've said, some of these issues are not only classified, but they are very sensitive things that certainly I may not be able to address them openly here. But the fact remains that I challenge any police officer from head to toe to come and tell me that their problems is funding. I believe we can do more for them. but I don't want to accept the fact that there's any problem in terms of provision of funds or resources for them to train their people, for them to do the right thing, for them to operate according to global standard professional expectations as far as the policing of Nigerian people is concerned. And I want to believe we have relevant committees who do engage them time in, time out, supervise them by way of oversight. And I believe some of those things are being addressed one way or the other. Even at the level of the leadership, when we have issues or they have issues, we have always made our doors open, wide open, for them to come and interact with us, interface with us. And in doing that, we have we don't renege in whatever guise to undermine their welfare, to undermine provision of resources that will fund their activities, campaign and operations. So as far as funding is concerned, Chamberlain, I want to believe that it cannot be the problem of politicians. I challenge any police officer to tell me that their major problem now is funding. There could be need for more, which of course we are committed to providing more, but not as if they are being grossly underfunded.
Okay. Well, let me ask Mr. Ikebukuro Martins this one. Well, you have heard that, and you probably are aware as well that the number of people, perhaps even policemen, who may not want to show their faces, would raise issues around funding for them. For which reason some have even alluded to the fact that the reason some of the policemen go to the streets extorting money is because they have orders of maybe a DPO or a CP to do that. Do you think it's a problem of funding or legislation or the people themselves who are activating these things? Which one do you think is the real issue here?
The real issue is lack of passion. They are bitter. Most policemen are bitter. Many of them are not supposed to be policemen.
Why are they bitter?
Let me explain to you. They are not the only. They are not the only Nigerians who are paid the same salary. From my understanding, the salary structure of Nigeria is the same. Whether you are in the police, you are in the custom, you are in the federal service, they have the same salary structure. Every person is suffering from what is going on. The policemen, I think most of them lack passion. They never even wanted to be policemen. But because there was no other job, they now became police officers. Once you have passion for a job, it's very difficult for you to abuse the tenets of that profession. So what you have is, like I said, you have persons who never wanted to be policemen, then they now have the opportunity of carrying guns, and they now believe that they can use that opportunity to extort other Nigerians. The issue of funding, it is everywhere. Nobody is well paid in this country. That is the truth of the matter. Many people cannot even take, their salary cannot take them home. However, that does not mean that everybody will have to turn to armed robbers. So that issue is not good enough at all. They shouldn't be able to bring it up at all. That's the truth of the matter. Whether they have been funded, we all know that police is not the welfare is not really that good. But that should not be an excuse for brutalizing other persons. They don't brutalize the rich men. It's the poor people themselves that are brutalizing. Why? Because they have the opportunity to carry guns.
Just one moment.
I don't agree with that thought. That
sometimes
because they were not properly funded.
You know, you have also heard it said a number of times. You have also heard it said a number of times that when people go to police stations, they are asked to, the policemen would ask them to pay maybe for fuel or for one thing or the other before they can follow them to go and take on some of these issues. It's not a funding problem. Then what is it? No. You see, the question, what the issue at stake now is the atrocities they commit, their inhumanity to other citizens. That has nothing to do with funding. If you say that if somebody comes to the police station, you want money for generator and all that, that's what the complaint of Nigerians as we are speaking now. The complaint of Nigerians is that SARS and other police units, they against the rule of law, they abuse the rights of other Nigerians. They kill Nigerians. Many people have been killed. In fact, for any person that has a child of between the age of 70 to 30, you must be very scared when your son is leaving the home. Because once they see any young man on the street, you are likely to be picked. And if you are not from a very rich family or a influential family, you might not return. If you go to the police station, you see what goes on. Go to the prison. Many innocent persons are in the prison. They will frame you up. That is the truth of the matter. So that is what Nigerians are complaining about. Not whether or not, if I go to a police station, they will ask me for money to buy fuel or not. If that is the issue, well, Nigerians can live with that. Nigerians can almost live with anything. But
this issue has become overbearing that Nigerians are now crying out, and that's why the National Assembly, for the first time, that taking such a drastic action that when I heard the Speaker giving that order yesterday, I cannot remember the last time the National Assembly is trying to take such drastic action in such a very fast time. It is because they are hearing the cries of Nigerians. People are dying, and most of the people who are dying are people who are on the lower rung of the society. So it has nothing to do with funding at all. It has to do with attitude. It has to do with character and disposition. And like I said before, most of them are very bitter because we relate with them all the time. They are very bitter. They are not bitter because they are not well paid. They are bitter for many other reasons. Many of them have their ambition truncated. Many of them don't like doing the work of the police. Sometimes you meet other policemen who, when you meet, you'll be very shocked that this man is actually a policeman because he loves his job. And because he loves his job, he put passion into it. And these inadequacies are not enough to turn him into a wicked or a dangerous man. But for those who are bitter, every small thing, they are angry, and they tend to shoot and they tend to kill without thinking. So those are the issues we are quarreling about as for today. Not the funding cannot be the reason. I think the police should go back. How they recruit those men into SARS must be looked at. There must be some basics to look at the psychological being and the psychological makeup of every individual before being handed a gun to go into the street. Must be taken into account. And I think at this
hear you, but
a lot of reform need to take place in the police force.
Let's bring in Honorable Dogowa again on this one. What is going to happen to the Police Service Commission? They are in charge of the disciplinary role of the police, because yesterday they even issued a statement about what they're doing or will do to discipline erring officials. What is he thinking about that?
The thinking, Chamberlain, like I've earlier said, is going to be a holistic one. Our intention is to come up with a robust and comprehensive reform of all pieces of legislation to do with police administration. Where we find the Police Service Commission wanting, or where we find the Police Service Commission being protected unnecessarily by a provision of the law, we will look at that law and change it, repeal it, to make the Police Service Commission work under the expectation of a civil society. Where we find the IG, maybe by powers enshrined or given to him by the Constitution, or where we find a DPO, even a prosecutor at the court level, where we find he's been overprotected to operate as a civil person, to operate within the context of the global standard. The House is now committed to make a comprehensive repeal of those existing laws so that we can also have what we can call a democratic policy. We will provide provisions in the Constitution and any other piece of legislation around the institution of the police, an intervention where we will have something that will police the police. But what we have at the moment is that the police are policing themselves. The police are above the law. The police are becoming so criminal in the fight against criminality. And that is the intention. So the fact is that as long as we give this comprehensive intervention to the pieces of laws around the police administration, we will get every other thing right. The point raised by my colleague here to do with the attitudinal disposition of police officers is also germane. I used to be a sociology student, and I know what is called job satisfaction. When you are undertaking a job, Chamberlain, you as moderator there, a newscaster or an editor on the television, if you are not satisfied with a job, then certainly what you do will not be effective. And we will take note of all these things in the next legislation that we are going to encapsulate, so that at the end we have a beautiful and wonderful policing in our own country, Nigeria, given our nationhood and given our democratic journey to nationhood. I think we should be beyond this at the moment. We shouldn't be talking of extrajudicial killings at the moment. At the level of our democratic development, we shouldn't be talking of torture. We shouldn't be talking of bribery and whatever. Go and ask the police officers, as far as their welfare is concerned, ask them how much is a constable earning now as his salary. It's quite different from what you used to know. How much, even uniform, police uniform, that in the budget we provide for their uniforms, 2 sets of uniform each. I know of this in the past 4 or 5 years ago. I'm not sure whether that has been done in the current budget, but most things to do with the welfare and well-being of the police officers has always been taken care of very seriously.
Right. And now, Honorable Mr. Ikebukuro Martins talked about passion. You talk about job satisfaction. And I'm thinking, in the process of writing a new legislation, how would you write passion job satisfaction into legislation? Because according to Mr. Ikebukuro Martins, a good number of them are not happy with the job. So are you going to write it or say, you know what, if you're not happy or satisfied, maybe you should go, let's get in new people? So how will the legislation really capture that whole passion, job satisfaction component?
I believe what will come, when we come to legislate, when we come to reform some of these existing laws, like I said, we will engage so many people, specialized people. Psychologists will be on board. Sociologists will be on board. Teachers will also come on board. Retired police officers will come on board. I believe with all these hands on deck, we will be able to address some of these deficiencies in terms of even recruitment of the police officers up initio. A situation whereby somebody just comes around to be a police officer simply because he could not get any other job elsewhere. That is something that should be looked at. You must only come to be a police officer on first-line charge when you have the commitment and the devotion that, yes, this is my first choice of service to serve my fatherland, Nigeria. When you are coming to be a policeman on a second chance or on a second thought, oh no, I wanted to be a banker, I wanted to be a lawyer, I wanted to be maybe in the Nigerian army, simply because you could not get that opportunity, you now turn coming to the police as a second opportunity. That should not be tolerated.
So wait,
specialized people under this kind of context will come and have their experience to bear.
At the end of the day, do we expect there to be some, mass flushing out of bad eggs in the police force, or what? What should we expect?
Chamberlain, expect everything.
Oh.
Expect everything, every other thing that will make our police and policing a perfect one. We will do whatever it takes to make sure that our own police administration is to the best standard of world practice. Fine. Anything short of that, the law will not tolerate that. And this time around, we are going to give this law like a final intervention, final engagement, so that Nigerian police can now be an institution that could be emulated world over.
Right. So if we are to expect
so whatever
everything,
you expect to make our own police administration will be done.
Okay. Well, you have said it. Expect everything. Some will add anything. But Mr. Ikebukuro Martins, right? You know, I mean, this is a whole lawmaking process. I mean, the House of Reps says they'll come up with something in 30 days in collaboration with the NBA, CSOs, and the rest, just to have something that will solve these issues. But I referred to the constitutional provision in Section 205, sub 5, which is a major part, or which will form a major part of this legislation. Do you see any hiccups ahead, any form of potholes? Because that will involve constitutional amendment, and you know that is usually quite difficult to achieve.
Yes, if I got Mr. Dongowa very clearly, he said that thank God the process of the review of the Constitution is ongoing. So whatever they are going to do now, they are going to incorporate into the Constitution. That does not necessarily mean that it must only be incorporated into the Constitution before these laws can work. That's not what he said. But that these laws cannot be incorporated into the Constitution because the Constitution is being amended now, so that it will become difficult for those laws to be amended thereafter. I think that is the point he was trying to make. And if you look at the third schedule of the Constitution, where the police council is, the police council is giving power for the general supervision and administration of the police beyond the operation. So that means that the law itself envisaged, that the Constitution envisaged a situation where the police should be supervised. That's why it gave power to the police council to have power to supervise the police. So those are the areas that at the end of the day we are going to look at. The House of Assembly, the National Assembly is going to look at to ensure that the police can be supervised. So it is not impossible to supervise the police. The Constitution has already made provision for it in a general way. But what I understand the National Assembly is trying to do now is that whatever they do, they now impute into the Constitution to make it a stronger legislation. Then secondly, I used to think that police used to have rules of engagement. That's why they used to have what you call the room trial. That is to say you have breached these rules. So they actually think that there are rules that can be enforced. The problem here is that the policemen, they are not enforcing the rules. In the army, we have what we call military police. In the military, we have what we call military police. We all know that no soldier that is not afraid of the military police, because immediately you misbehave, the military police, they come after you and they take you to court martial. But the police, what are they doing in their own, on their own side? They are not doing anything.
Okay, you know, specifically.
In 2012, when I was Yes.
Just a moment, pardon me.
Whoa.
Specifically, the House said,
Yes.
that section 215 sub 5, they're looking to expunge it from the Constitution because it sort of, indemnifies the police from individual responsibilities from action taken. But the point I was trying to make is the fact that the clamor is end SARS now. Well, it appears as though SARS will not be ended, but reformed. But the point is, people are looking forward to it happening as soon as possible. So in terms of time frame, I mean, if that will be expunged from the Constitution, that might take some time. So what is the shortest, possible time that we'll see these reforms come into full-fledged?
Yes, that solution lies with the IGP. Because he has already given order. Because what we're asking for is operational orders. SARS is just a name. They can change the name and give it another name, and you still have the same outfit in town. So what Nigerians are saying is the atrocities they commit. The IGP have said, look, don't go out, you have no right to stop and search. You have no right to search the phones. You have no right to search bags. These are, if all these are complied with, we won't have the issues we are having right now with unlawful killings. So the IGP has all the powers to ensure that his men are operating under the rule of law. So for the immediate task before us now, we are calling on the IGP to do the needful. Then the Police Service Commission, which has the power to discipline officers, should be up and doing. The question you ask yourself, go and check. Let's have the statistics. How many petitions have been written to Police Service Commission in the past 5 years, and how many did they treat? You'll be very shocked that the percentage will not be up to 10%. So the Police Service Commission themselves is not doing anything to discipline members of the force. The power given to the constitutionally to discipline members of the force, they are not doing that. The IGP has no power to discipline. He has powers to set the rules. But when these rules are breached, it is the Police Service Commission that ought to discipline. Have they been disciplining police officers? The answer is no. They arrest, after some time, they post the person to another place, and before you know it, they come back again to the station where they committed those atrocities. We see them every day. I live in Warri. There's a particular police station I don't want to mention. The atrocity happening in that police station, the police will propose that in less than 6 months, the same men are back and they are doing what they are doing. And they tell you that nothing will happen to us. And actually, you see nothing happening to them. What is the Police Service Commission doing? Those are the questions we should be asking. So the immediate ask now is to tax the Police Service Commission to ensure that the complaints of Nigerians are addressed. They should discipline police officers, and we want to know how many they have disciplined in recent times. We really want to know. You'll be shocked. They have not disciplined any other person. So the ball, as of today, lies with the Police Service Commission and the Inspector General of Police.
Okay, Honorable, let's have you respond finally. Now, much as yes, it will be good to address the concerns that Nigerians have raised, but if we hear such complaints with the customs or Nigerian army, should we expect the same approach from the House?
Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. The answer is yes, and I repeat, is yes. It is because, like I said, virtually every component of governance is under the watch of the legislature as an institution. Governance is always for the people and by the people. And as long as every component of government service is done for the benefit of the people, then it's the business of the legislature. I want to assure you that if the custom goes foul, or the custom goes wrong one way or the other, we will also take the same action. If the military for any reason goes in the same wrong way, we will take same action. Like I've earlier said, we are going to come up with a comprehensive legislation that will address all these kind of deficiencies in terms of administration of security administration as per the security agencies in the country. No matter who is affected. It's not about the police alone. It's going to be comprehensive. It's going to be standard. It's going to be globally addressed. It will be addressed in accordance with global best practices. Okay.
Many are asking. So no one will be spared. Some are asking, will key officials of the police also be invited either openly or behind the scenes to also give the House their impression? Will members of the police force, will they be invited to also give their concerns?
Come again, please. I've not heard you well.
Will members of the Nigerian police equally be invited to talk about this as well, to give their impression?
Absolutely, absolutely. When you have a legislation before you as a legislature, when it comes to the level of engagement with the members of the public, the police or any other relevant agency that will have something to bring to bear in the course of our legislative considerations will openly be given the opportunity to come and share their thought with us.
All right.
But the most important thing is that we will never compromise our thought that is going to be geared or be guided by the best interest of the Nigerian people. The police will be invited, retired police officers, retired IGs will be invited, people who are specialized in terms of security, security works or security intelligence and what have you will also be invited. But the fact remains that we will be guided by the best interest of the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who must be protected, because the business of governance is about the protection of lives and property of the people. And when we must do that within the context of democratic operations, where everybody lives in a society where liberty thrives, nobody should be above the law. The rule of law has to be universally applied. That is the context.
We'll look forward to that, and we do thank you for your time, Honorable Ado Dogowa, Majority Leader in the House of Representatives. And then Mr. John Ikebukuro Martins, First Vice President of the NBA. Thank you as well for your perspectives this morning.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure being with you.